Okay, you guys, so I have two words. This is the first revelation. So as I was reading Genesis, it's Genesis chapter 5, and I have my Bible right here. Genesis chapter 5, Genesis chapter 6, verse 3. It says, "Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not abide in mortals forever, for they are flesh. Their days shall be 120 years. So this is just like about the life expectancy that we should be expecting to be living to 120 years old. Of course, there are you can't just be wicked and expect that, because if you're wicked, the Lord, with long life, the Lord will not satisfy you. But we have the assurance of Psalms chapter 91, specifically verse 16, that states that with long life will I satisfy you, but you can't forget the rest, which is verses 1 through 15. So in dwelling in the secret place of the Most High, abiding under the shadow of the Almighty, in making the Lord God of hosts your refuge, your fortress, your redeemer, and trusting and abiding in him, once you go through verses 1 through 15, then you get 16. And so as per Psalm chapter 91, verse 16, we should be expecting that our days shall be 120 years. So expect the Spirit of the Lord to abide in us for our whole life long. And that lifespan is 120 years. Of course, that's not even near as long as they lived back in the days of Noah. Homeboy lived 180 something years. It says it, that Noah built an altar to the Lord. Where does it say it? Repopulating the earth. It says it somewhere, but Noah lived like 800 something years and then died, and then it said that he died. And so those days are different, because that was okay, you guys, and this is next revelation. So it is on the keyword biblical, as in it is recorded, it's a fact, it's the truth, because it's written in the word. So the biblical interpretation of the number 7. So let's kind of take this through the genealogy. So with Genesis, it begins with the creation of the world. So God created all things that have his breath of life in 6 days, and on the 7th he rested. So the 7th day signifies the completion. Anytime you see 7, it's a cycle. So you fulfill the 7 days and it's complete when it's complete on that 7th day. So here's further examples. So in Genesis with the flood waters, it says, right here, at the end of 40 days, Noah opened the window of the ark that he had made and sent out the raven, and it went to and fro until the waters were dried up from the earth. Then he sent out the dove from him to see if the waters had subsided from the face of the ground. But the dove found no place to set its foot and returned to him to the ark, for the waters were still on the face of the whole earth. Right here. So he put his hand and took it and brought it into the ark with him. He waited another 7 days, which is verse 12, and sent out the dove, and it did not return to him anymore. And then in verse 13, in the 601st year, in the first month, the first day of the month, the waters were dried up from the earth, and Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked and saw the face of the ground. Okay, so we just continue reading, but right there, he waited another 7 days, because that's that cycle. It's that cycle of completion. He waited 7 days and then sent out the dove again, and then it didn't return. So then right here we continue from Genesis. So that's the story of Noah. Now we go to the story of Jacob meeting Rachel. We know that Jacob served Rachel's father in order to have her. How long did Jacob serve to have Rachel? 7 years. How long did Jacob, and let's break that down. So in order for Jacob to receive a wife, so for each wife he had to serve 7 years for a daughter of this man. And so right here it said, so Jacob served, verse 20, so Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of the love that he had for her. So then after he served that 7 years, after the 7 was completed, he was like, and so it actually says right here in verse 21, then Jacob said to Laban, which is the father of Rachel and Leah, give me my wife that I may go into her, for my time is completed. Completion. So then, of course, Laban deceived him and gave him Leah instead of Rachel. And so and then Jacob was like hurt, and he's like, why did you do this? And so then he's like, because in our country, you don't give the younger before the oldest. And so then Laban was like, serve me another 7 years. And so Laban was like, serve me another 7 years and you can have Rachel. So then once that 7 years is completed, he got Rachel. So we see the cycle 7, and that's just as far as I got as of right now, up till chapter 30 in the book of Genesis. So yeah, so we see the number 7 as completion. So 8 doesn't mark completion. 9 doesn't mark completion. 2 isn't completion. 3 isn't like those don't biblically represent completion. The 3 biblically represents death, burial, and resurrection. So that represents newness, renewal, and revival, which is what that represents, because we know Christ died, Christ was buried and in the tomb, and then Christ was risen. Death, burial, resurrection. That's what 3 represents. Then the number 8, you guys, the number 8 is not completion. And I'm going to give scriptures about that. And I'm going to make a specific video even more tailored with the direct biblical scriptures that explain what the number 8 represents. But the number 8 represents, what's it called? Like a time of, so 8 is the number of, how do I say this? So I'll just explain what some of the scriptures say. And like I said, I'm gonna make the specific video that go into the exact scriptures, but off knowledge, off dome. There are scriptures in the Bible where the time of cleansing, so like women when they are on their menstrual cycle and period, 7 days they are unclean, as in 7 days they have to purify and sanctify themselves. If you're a leper, and like when you got healed, even Christ, when he healed one of the lepers, he was like, 7 days you have to purify yourself. You're going to be ceremonially and ritually unclean. Then after that 7 days, on the 7th day you bathe usually, and then on the 8th day you go to the priest so you can be publicly declared as clean. So 8 represents a public declaration of the completion that happened of the 7 days. So 8 oftentimes represents the start of that new cycle, which is kind of number 1. So like 8 and number 1 are like the exact same number if you're looking at life in the cycles of 7. 8 and 1 are the same thing, because after the 7 days, after you rest on the 7 days, it begins again, which you can say is number 8. Technically, if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or number 1 to start it all again. Kind of like how when Noah sent the bird out, he waited another 7 days after the first 7 that he sent the raven out, and then sent the dove out again after sending it out initially the first time. So number 8 also represents that public declaration of, like, so basically like a time of recording. And like a time of like, so number 8 biblically represents like like exaltation, purity, ceremony. It represents like just being publicly declared clean. So you go through your 7-day process with God, which is spiritual, which is personal, which is private. And then on the 8th day, or on the first day that begins the new cycle, it's like a new chapter for that next 7-day cycle, which technically could be 8 through 14, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. You guys clocking it. God bless you guys. But yeah, so I'm going to make that video on what the number 8 means biblically. So if you have been like seeing, if you, not angel numbers, but everyone knows this. There's literally a whole book of the Bible that says numbers, because numbers and genealogies and how the word and the world operates in sequences of numbers and time periods. It is important. And it's important to understand when something is happening for 3 days, why certain things, because like God has like specific instructions. He's like, walk around the city 7 times, because on the 7th time Jericho was gonna fall. Completion, whatever was happening in the spirit would be completed in 7 days. Y'all get it? And I haven't even gotten there yet, but that's also in the Bible. Then when Esther fasted for 3 days, First day, it was a death to the flesh, dying to the flesh. Second day, burial. Third day was the resurrection, when her people would be revived back to life, which is when she had the feast and the meal prepared for King Xerxes and Haman. And that represented the revival of her people, because that's when it was all figured out. Then we have, of course, Christ, our King, the Prince of Peace. Death, burial, and resurrection. 3 days represents revival. So any 3-day fast is to revive something, whether it be your spirit, your flesh, the Spirit of God within you that has been quenched. That's to reset. That's what it is. Anytime you are dealing with like just being like unclean for whatever reason, whether that's like menstrual cycle bleeding, whether that's from fornication, having sex outside of marriage, like all these different sins, 7 days to purify yourself and to consecrate. It takes 7 days to be deemed officially by heavens, the record of heaven, consecrated. And then on the 8th day, you get to start life in that newness. Clock it, you guys.